Now, even though Naruto's 20 years old at this point, there are a lot of people that still believe some very strange things about the series. Maybe because a lot of them are just watching Naruto through TikTok or other strange means, but regardless, I'm gonna be dispelling several of these stereotypes attached to the Naruto series, and I'm gonna be explaining why these are misconceptions about the story. I'll be starting with misconceptions that a more general public and people that don't know much about the story would have, and I'll move on until I reach misconceptions that the fandom perpetuates themselves. Starting off with the old misconception that Naruto's a kid's show, therefore I don't want to watch it. It's a very common thing to happen. If you recommend Naruto to a friend or somebody else in your life, I don't know, they're gonna say, I don't want to watch Naruto, I'm in my 20s or I'm in my 30s. This is a kid's show, it's not worth watching. Now the first thing is that just because something can also be enjoyed by kids, it doesn't mean it cannot be enjoyed by all ages. It's not like Naruto is Peppa Pig or something, but that's not even the case. Naruto tackles a lot of mature themes throughout his story. You can also see the backstory of several characters and how tragic they are. Itachi, for example, has to literally kill his entire family because of a very terrible circumstance he's put on. We get themes of war, child soldiers, death, and philosophy. The infinite Tsukuyomi plan, it's not something you would see in Backyardigans. Is it worth sacrificing my free will and essentially my humanity in order to live in this perfect dream so that I'll be happy forever even though I am no longer interacting with real people? Of course there are comedic moments as well, but that's comic relief. It's to be expected. God, even Breaking Bad had comic relief, so yeah, Naruto's gonna have it too, but it doesn't mean it's a quote-unquote kids show. Also, the anime is not terribly violent. There's blood and violence, but the manga, you would be pretty surprised if you've never read the Naruto manga and you're first looking through it. You're gonna see some very bloody pages, some very gruesome, violent moments in the manga that are definitely censored in the anime for the sake of lowering its rating. Seriously, if you were to pick apart every time the anime censored a violent moment in the Naruto manga, I would be here all day. And yeah, I know violence by itself doesn't really mean anything, but when things are violent, they do establish a more mature tone. And when violence is used correctly in a story, it's a great tool for telling it. When you feel as though characters are hurt or that something extremely violent happened, that creates a reaction and it can be a powerful tool. And there are other examples of censorship. For example, in the manga, Shikamaru starts to smoke after Asuma's death. When he destroys Hidan in the explosion pit, he tosses the cigarette he was smoking instead of the lighter that he tosses in the anime. So yeah, the anime kind of contributes a little bit for this misconception that Naruto is a quote-unquote kids show. But even so, if you watch the Naruto anime and you skip the filler episodes, because yeah, there are some really bad, stupid, childish filler episodes, but if you skip those and just watch the canon story, even though it's not going to be as violent and bloody, it will still be an interesting story regardless of your age. You'll still be able to connect with the characters because this is not a story written specifically for kids. There are themes that kids can appreciate and they can use it in their lives, but it doesn't mean adults can't watch it and like it. Now let's move on to a more middle of the road stereotype. Some people that are not big Naruto fans have this stereotype, but you can also find this one in the fandom itself. It's actually one of the most common comments that you may get in any given video when you talk about powerful characters in the series, and it goes like this. Well, Naruto Part 1 was really good, but they really lost themselves in Naruto Shippuden because it just became like Dragon Ball Z. They were just competing to see who can shoot the strongest laser at each other and explosions, and there was no strategy anymore, and the series lost what made it special in the first place. And this comes from a place of complete ignorance. Maybe the person that watched Naruto once can come up with that conclusion after like a year or so of not looking at the series again, and you just like remember stuff, because the Kaguya fight does leave a bad taste in your mouth when you finish the series. But saying that there was no strategy and that the characters didn't act like shinobis in Naruto Shippuden is just completely wrong. I mean, I could go from every single fight in Naruto Shippuden up until the pain arc. Sakura versus Sasori, Sasuke, Orochimaru versus Naruto, Kakuzu versus the Leaf Village, Shikamaru versus Hidan, Asuma versus Hidan, Naruto versus Pain, Deidara versus Sasuke, Sasuke versus Itachi, Sasuke in the 5 Kage Summit, Sasuke versus Danzo, and then even in the war arc, they have strategy in their fights. Look at the Jubito fight. Look at the strategies Minato and Tobirama were implementing there so that they could actually hit Jubito. Look at the Jubidara versus Guy fight. Look at the teamwork between Gaara, Guy, Minato, Lee, and Kakashi there so that they can land a single punch on Jubidara. It's perfect teamwork. And also in the other Edo Tensei fights, the 5 Kage versus Madara, Naruto versus the 3rd Raikage, for example, where Naruto comes up with a strategy to actually defeat the guy that cannot be defeated. Hell, Obito versus Naruto, Guy, B, and Kakashi, when Kakashi is coming up with all sorts of strategies to counter Obito's Kamui. Even in the Kaguya fight, there's an interesting bit of strategy by Team 7, not by Kage, because Kage sucks, but Team 7 still strategizes in that fight. And if the opponent they were facing was not Kaguya and a more interesting opponent that could react to their strategy, the fight could have been good. Just because the characters got more powerful, it doesn't mean they're not going to use strategies anymore. And this notion that now it's only like boom boom explosions is reinforced by the Bijudamas, which, well, they are chakra bombs that are shot by the tail beasts. But this jutsu, yes, it appears later in Naruto Shippuden, but it's not as though they're just doing that. And even when they use this jutsu, they have reasons for doing so, and they can strategize around this jutsu as well. Take, for example, when Naruto used his Kurama avatar for the first time and fought against 5 tail beasts at once. He was still strategizing, and even when he shot his first Bijudama, he shot it with a plan. He shot the Bijudama underneath the other Bijudama that was being shot against him so that they would rise up into the sky and they wouldn't explode everyone in the battlefield, so they wouldn't die, essentially. So even using the Bijudama, characters were still strategizing. Madara and Obito used the 10 Tails Bijudama to destroy the headquarters of the Alliance because they were providing strategies for the entire Alliance to implement against the 10 Tails in the war arc. The arc that's famous for not having strategies whatsoever, and it's just explosions and Dragon Ball Z. And I know this may be also a stereotype for Dragon Ball Z, that the fights are just boom boom explosion, let's see who has the most powerful ability here, but I haven't seen Dragon Ball, so I cannot comment on it. I'm just relaying what a lot of people say. And this aspect of the characters quote-unquote losing their strategy is also correlated with another one of those stereotypes saying that, well, I liked Naruto Part 1 because the fights were more grounded, but then in Naruto Shippuden, everybody had a mecha or a megazord, and they were just blasting each other with those giant freaking robot things that they had, you know, the Susanoo and the Kurama avatar and all that. They're essentially gigantic things that were smashing against each other, and that happens more often in Naruto Shippuden, but there's a reason for that. It's because the main characters are getting much more powerful. This is a complete misconception because if you go back to Naruto Part 1, to the very first page of the manga, or to the very first minute of the anime, a massive fox is introduced, a creature so large and powerful that just by waving its tails, it can cause tsunamis and flatten mountains and cause earthquakes. And this creature just so happens to be sealed inside the protagonist of the story, setting up that eventually the protagonist would no doubt achieve this type of power, which happens in Naruto Shippuden. The reason why the characters in Naruto Part 1 have quote-unquote more grounded fights is because in the grand scheme of things, they're much weaker. But when we go and look at Kakashi or other more powerful characters in Part 1, for example, they are already using these massive jutsus. Because some people say, wow, there's no more stealth in Naruto Shippuden. There is stealth in Naruto Shippuden, but they are using more powerful jutsus because they have access to them. And it's not as though in Naruto Part 1, characters weren't using jutsus that were completely conspicuous and gigantic. The first high-level fight we get to see in this series, which is Kakashi versus Zabuza, they finish the fight by shoving a massive water dragon into each other, and Kakashi beats Zabuza by using this gigantic forest-wide water vortex. In the second arc of the series, the Chunin exams, the main character finishes the arc with a massive fight against a gigantic sand monster using a gigantic toad that that are about the same size as the gigantic things we get to see in Naruto Shippuden, but nobody's complaining about the Chunin exams. Also, we see in the fight between Orochimaru and Hiruzen that the first Hokage was already using massive wood-style jutsus, the third Hokage was creating massive stone walls and fire jutsus and all that. Orochimaru was summoning massive snakes too. There was a lot of big things in Naruto Part 1 already. And then after the Chunin exams, we get a three-way deadlock. Three gigantic things just clashing against each other. The slug, the toad, and the snake. It's just that the big things in Naruto Shippuden got more powerful because the characters got more powerful. And yes, characters will progress in strength. This is natural for shonen anime. Power creep is gonna be a thing. You just have to handle it properly, and for the most part, Naruto did pretty well handling its power creep. Some people particularly don't like the Susanoo because it's an ethereal avatar and not like a summon or even a tail beast, and I guess this can be a matter of taste because I and a lot of people love the concept of the Susanoo, but saying that these things only started after part 1 and the characters lost their stealth and strategy in Naruto Shippuden is completely wrong. I mean, just take a look at the Chidori, for example. Is that jutsu really stealthy and quiet? You're literally carrying 1,000 chirping birds in your hand. It's not gonna be the most inconspicuous thing. And now let's move on to the next stereotype that people have about the Naruto series. And this one is very widespread in the fandom, which is the notion that the main theme of the Naruto series is that hard work beats natural talent. A lot of people think this is the core theme of the Naruto series, and no, it's a sub-theme of the series during specific moments. Naruto is a story that has 700 manga chapters and I don't know how many anime episodes, so there are gonna be countless different themes approached in the series, but saying that hard work beats natural talent is the core theme is completely wrong because of so many reasons, but I kind of understand where these people are coming from. Hard work beats natural talent is a theme presented mostly in two fights of the series, two great moments. Rock Lee versus Gaara and Might Guy versus Jubidara. This is where this theme is actually in the forefront of the story, and also whenever Rock Lee and Might Guy get a chance to shine during the series. But this theme is much more attached to those two characters than to anybody else in the story, because they are actually not talented. And even still, this is not the main theme for those two great fights. It's something else, because just tell me one thing here. If the core theme of the story was hard work beats natural talent, they should have won their fights, right? And both Rock Lee and Might Guy lose their fights to Gaara and Mata respectively. So obviously the story cannot be about hard work beats natural talent, right? Or even if you say the story is about hard work versus natural talent, no, because this is only a core theme when Rock Lee and Might Guy are on screen. When Shikamaru was fighting Hidan, for example, hard work beats natural talent had absolutely nothing to do with their rivalry and their battle and their struggles. When Itachi fights Sasuke for the final confrontation of the Uchiha clan, that has absolutely nothing to do with hard work versus natural talent. When Naruto Uzumaki fights Pain, that fight has nothing to do with hard work versus natural talent. And some people say no, it has, because Naruto worked really hard to attain Sage Mode in that fight, and Pain's very gifted, he has the Rinnegan. And well, these statements are technically correct, but no, Naruto is not a guy that lacks talent. As a matter of fact, Naruto is probably the most talented individual in the history of the Naruto universe. Some people confuse being a prodigy with being talented. One can be talented without being a prodigy. For example, Naruto. Prodigies are people that just blossom very early and show their talents way earlier than expected, such as Kakashi, Itachi, Minato, and others in the Naruto series. But people can still be talented and not be a prodigy. Also, talent is not just one specific thing. It's not how smart you are when you were a kid, or how well you can control your chakra, or how well you can dispose of your opponents. No, talent comes in all different types of ways. Naruto in chapter 1 of the series had the biggest chakra pool in the entire verse of anybody that was alive. And that's with his own chakra, he created 1,000 shadow clones in the first episode, a feat that only a couple of people could have ever accomplished in the entire universe, be them very experienced or young shinobis. And he defeats Mizuki, which was, well, Mizuki is just trash, dude, he's fodder. But no, he was a Chunin, and Naruto was a 12-year-old genin that had quote-unquote no talent, even though he mastered the Shadow Clone Jutsu in a couple of hours, a jutsu that's so dangerous to be used and difficult to master that if you master the jutsu, you become a ninja kind of instantly. And let's not discount the fact that Naruto also has a demon inside of him that provides him with immense power. You know, he just has to ask for it. The training to acquire the Nine Tails' chakra had nothing to do with quote-unquote hard work. Sure, Jiraiya tossed him down a cliff, but the only thing Naruto had to do was to look inside of himself and ask the Nine Tails for some help. And I'm not saying Naruto didn't work hard throughout the series. Obviously he did. The Rasengan training was very tough. The Rasen Shuriken training was also very difficult, but just take a look at how the Rasen Shuriken training was achieved. Naruto could only master the Rasen Shuriken because of his absurd natural talent. If he couldn't create 1,000 clones to learn the jutsu quicker, he would have never mastered it. And then in the war arc, he attains the power of a god, essentially, because he is the reincarnation of Ashura. Naruto has immense talent. Does that mean Naruto is not an underdog? No, it doesn't. Naruto is still an underdog because of the circumstances he is in the beginning of the series and everything he has to do in order to become somebody that's respected around the village. If you were to encapsulate Naruto as a character, his core theme, it would be to never give up, and not that hard work beats natural talent. That's exactly what Naruto says to Pain whenever he defeats him. Give up trying to make me give up. And this is not the theme of the entire series. This topic deserves a video of its own, but if I try to encapsulate the entire series into one core theme, that theme would be how people deal with the curses they receive from life, and whether or not they will be able to endure them. The thesis statement of the Naruto series is in chapter 699, when Sasuke literally spells out that to be a ninja means to endure, and ninja can be kind of interchanged with being a person here. Naruto is a story about people that have to deal with quote-unquote curses, and curses can be literally everything from being born with a demon inside of you, or being cursed by a destiny of revenge because your brother killed your entire clan. And if people give in to those curses, they'll lose themselves, and if not, they will be true ninjas. That's why the Talk no Jutsu is such an important part of the series, because it's Naruto literally talking people out of their curses. Rock Lee's curse was that he had no talent, and even still he lived in a ninja world where he wanted to prove himself. And therefore his philosophy that hard work beats natural talent is born in that world. Is that philosophy right? No, it's actually not. Because Rock Lee loses, and Neji himself says a Pyrrhic victory wouldn't bring you satisfactionally. But in the end of the day, Rock Lee manages to prove he is a splendid shinobi, so even though his thesis that hard work beats natural talent was wrong, he was still able to somehow lift his curse by saying, even though this world cursed me with no talent whatsoever, I still managed to conquer it and become a ninja, and a powerful one at that. But if you look at many other of the iconic moments in the Naruto series, most of them have nothing to do with the hard work, natural talent theme that surrounds much more Rock Lee and Guy than anybody else. The next stereotype actually has a sliver of truth to it, but I would like to dispel it nonetheless, because many people think that, be it a very hardcore Naruto fan or a person that doesn't even watch Naruto. And that will be that the Naruto story has slow pacing. Now, this usually will come from the anime watchers of the Naruto series, which, to be fair, are most people. Only a small portion of the fandom, especially in the West, have read the manga, so people are definitely more accustomed to the anime, and the anime can be very annoying sometimes. First, with filler episodes, but this is not that big of a deal nowadays because you can just skip them just by reading through a filler list. It was a big deal back then when we were watching Naruto as it was releasing, and then there's an entire arc of 30 episodes where Naruto's fighting against ostriches out of nowhere, so that was terribly annoying at the time, but now it's not that much of a problem. Still, the Naruto anime still suffers from very bad pacing issues. Some episodes are half filler, half canon, meaning that they include filler scenes inside of canon episodes to pad the runtime so that back in the day the anime wouldn't catch up to the manga. Very annoying practice. I prefer seasonal anime, of course. And I'm not talking about fights that are enhanced and made cooler like Madara versus the Alliance and Obito versus Kakashi in the anime where there's actually more stuff than there was in the manga, because that takes effort and that's actually elevating the work. But no, these filler scenes in the middle of canon episodes are just like things that are unimportant. For example, in the Kazekage rescue arc, many people dislike that arc a lot because the pacing is bad, but it's bad because the anime screws it up. Remember when Might Guy and his team were fighting against the doppelgangers? Those very boring fights that had no consequence in the story? Yeah, they occupied a decent chunk of episodes during that arc, but in the manga, those fights are resolved in 1 page, 1.5. Like, it's really quick because what matters is that Team Guy, they were stopped by their doppelgangers and they eventually beat their doppelgangers. You don't have to see that entire boring fight of 4 different characters playing out. It just makes the thing so long and annoying. And also the same thing applies for when Kakashi and Naruto were chasing after Deidara in that very same arc. They were chasing after Deidara and they were including so many filler scenes for that part of the arc that was insane. Because if you read through the manga, those scenes, they are fine. They are quick and they work well. They are well paced. The big fight of the arc was Sakura versus Chiyo. That fight was long in the manga and in the anime, but it was good in the manga because it was well paced as well. Even though the fight had a lot of stages, Sasori used a billion forms in that fight, it never got boring because we experienced that roller coaster of emotions in that fight where Sakura and Chiyo had the upper hand. But no, now Sasori has the upper hand and it kept on fluctuating with a lot of twists and turns, and the fight was great in the manga. And if you just take the fight in a vacuum in the anime, it's also good, but there's so much filler around it, and it's filler that you don't even realize is filler, that the pacing, yeah, it tanks. It sucks. Another character whose scenes are filler almost every time is Konohamaru. He barely shows up in the manga. The only time he gets to shine a little bit is in the pain arc, and the rest of the time he appears in the anime, except for episode 2, they are mostly filler scenes because Konohamaru, he barely ever appears in the manga. I swear to God, if you're watching a Konohamaru scene in the anime, there's a very high possibility it's a filler scene, and you can tell because his scenes are slow and they kind of suck and they add nothing to the story. The Naruto manga has a very fast pace. You would be very surprised. If you've never read the Naruto manga, I definitely recommend you to because it's much better than the anime, and also it's well paced and you'll be surprised. You can read through Naruto so quick because it keeps on moving and you keep on reading because you want to see the next part of the story. This stereotype has some truth to it because of the anime, but if you read the original story, the manga, then it does not apply whatsoever. And there's another stereotype that's kind of correlated to this one, and that is that the Naruto flashbacks are terrible and that flashbacks are usually terrible overall regardless of how you use them. And this is another anime problem because they tend to use flashbacks that we've already seen before time and time again in the anime at length. During entire sections of episodes, they show us flashback of information we already know and that are not necessary for the story just to pad the runtime again. Which sucks because the flashbacks in the Naruto manga are mostly excellent. Kishimoto is a master of intertwining flashbacks with fight scenes, flashbacks that provide the backstory of the characters fighting and their motivations. And this is seen so many times in the series. Greatest example I like to give is Might Guy versus Jubidara. The flashback we see Might die sacrificing himself to save Guy and then cutting to Might Guy in the present opening the 8 gates is amazing. But in the anime, they make the flashback longer, and it's so much longer that it loses the impact. You just think the fight is slow, but as a matter of fact, the fight has an amazing pace in the manga because just the flashbacks were poorly done in the anime. I was tired of seeing that rock crushing Obito in the war arc. Like, come on, how many times do we have to see the same thing? And also Naruto's swing set. We get it. Naruto was lonely. We know that. You don't have to keep on showing the same flashback over and over again. Now, the Obito flashback here, there's a detail because this is the only time I don't like the flashbacks in the manga. When Obito is revealed to be Obito, you know, when Toby is unmasked, essentially. In the manga, we get the same story, the same flashback that we got in Kakashi Gaiden. And that's in the manga. Usually when we get to see a scene from the past in the manga that's not terribly relevant and that we've seen before, it's just like one small panel just to remind the audience of what happened. But in this situation, we saw the entire flashback of Kakashi and Obito playing out. I mean, not the entire thing, but a good chunk. And that occupied the entire chapter of when Obito was revealed to be himself in the war arc, which was kind of annoying, but still not nearly as bad as the anime, which does that every single time. And usually, the flashbacks in the Naruto manga are great. Take the Itachi flashbacks with his backstory in the Uchiha clan. Those were amazing. When Sasuke sees his family dying for the first time, that was shocking. Flashbacks are not inherently bad. They can be an amazing storytelling tool, but if you use them to pad the runtime and make your pacing bad, you know, in the Naruto anime, then no, you shouldn't use them that way. The next stereotype that people still believe up until this day is that Boruto is canon. Obviously, it isn't. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Like this video if you enjoy my content. Those things really help me with the YouTube algorithm, so please do them. And also watch this other video right here for more entertaining Naruto content. Thank you so much for watching.